Clinical features in aplastic anemia. So aplastic anemia, it can appear abruptly or insidiously. So aplastic anemia, it can appear abruptly or insidiously. So bleeding is the most common early symptom. So what is the early symptom? Bleeding is the most common early symptom. A complaint of days to weeks of easy bruising, oozing from the gums, nose bleeds, heavy menstrual flow, and sometimes petechiae will have been noticed. Petechiae, nosebleeds, oozing from the gums, and heavy menstrual flow. So with thrombocytopenia, massive hemorrhage is unusual. So with thrombocytopenia, massive hemorrhage, no, so this is unusual, but small amounts of bleeding in the central nervous system can result in catastrophic intracranial or retinal hemorrhage. So if there is a small amount of bleed in the CNS, so this will result in catastrophic intracranial or retinal hemorrhage. And symptoms of anemia are also frequent, like lassitude, weakness, shortness of breath, and a pounding sensation in the ears. So what are the symptoms of anemia? Lassitude, weakness, shortness of breath, and a pounding sensation in the ears. So infection, it is an unusual first symptom in aplastic anemia. So in aplastic anemia, first main symptom is bleeding. Infection, it is an unusual first symptom in aplastic anemia. Unlike in agranulocytosis, where pharyngitis, anorectal infection, or frank sepsis occurs early. So if you take agranulocytosis, where pharyngitis, anorectal infection, or frank sepsis occur early, patient often feel and look remarkably well despite drastically reduced blood counts. Blood counts are drastically reduced, but patient might appear remarkably well. Systemic complaints and weight loss, this should point to other etiologies of pancytopenia. So if there are systemic complaints and if there is weight loss, so this should point to other etiologies of pancytopenia. Prior medical drug use, chemical exposure, and preceding viral illness must often be elicited with direct questioning. So prior medical drug use, chemical exposure, and preceding viral illness, so those must often be elicited with direct questioning. A family history of hematological diseases or blood abnormalities, of pulmonary or liver fibrosis, or of early hair graying points to a telomeropathy, and a family history of unusual infections and warts point to GATA2 deficiency. So in GATA2 deficiency, there are unusual infections and warts, and early hair graying points to a telomeropathy. And physical examination. So if a physical examination is done, so in aplastic anemia, because of low platelet count and bone marrow failure, so there will be petechiae and ecchymosis. So these are typical, and retinal hemorrhages may be present. So pelvic and rectal examinations can often be deferred, but when pelvic and rectal examination is performed, it should be done with great gentleness to avoid trauma, because this pelvic and rectal examination, this might show bleeding from the cervical os and blood in the stool. So if we take this pelvic and rectal examination, so this will show bleeding from the cervical os and blood in the stool. Pallor of the skin and mucous membrane is common. Infection on presentation is unusual, but may occur if the patient has been symptomatic for a few weeks. So on presentation, infection is unusual, but it might occur in the patient if patient has been symptomatic for a few weeks. So in GATA2 deficiency, there will be unusual infections and warts. Early gray hair graying points to a telomeropathy. And one more important point, lymphadenopathy and splenomegaly. So they are highly atypical of aplastic anemia. Lymphadenopathy and splenomegaly. So they are highly atypical of aplastic anemia. Kephale spots and short stature suggest Fanconi's anemia. So Kephale spots and short stature suggest Fanconi's anemia. Peculiar nails and leukoplakia suggest dyskeratosis congenita. Kephale spots and short stature, so it will suggest Fanconi's anemia. Peculiar nails and leukoplakia, it suggests dyskeratosis congenita. Early graying and use of hair dyes to mask it, it suggests a telomerase defect. Early graying and use of hair dyes to mask it, so it will suggest a telomerase defect. Laboratory studies. So what are the lab? So first, what is in clinical features? Anemia will be there, bleeding will be there, CNS hemorrhage might occur, and infection will occur, and weight loss and systemic complaints are there. So it will point out to other etiologies of pancytopenia and warts and infections, Gata2 deficiency, telomeropathy, early hair graying, and pulmonary or liver fibrosis. So physical examination. So petechiae and ecchymosis are typical, and retinal hemorrhages may be present. And Kephale spots and short stature to Fanconi's anemia. Peculiar nails and leukoplakia suggest dyskeratosis congenita. Early graying and use of hair dyes suggest a telomerase defect. Laboratory studies. Blood. The smear will show large erythrocytes and paucity of platelets and granulocytes. So what the smear shows? Large erythrocytes and paucity of platelets and granulocytes. Paucity of platelets and granulocytes. MCV is commonly increased. Reticulocytes are absent or few, and lymphocytes number may be normal or reduced. One thing that has to be remembered is MCV is commonly increased. There will be large erythrocytes. So if there are immature myeloid forms, it suggests leukemia or MDS. So if there are immature myeloid forms, so this suggests leukemia or MDS. Nucleated RBC suggests marrow fibrosis or tumor invasion. So if nucleated RBCs are there, it will suggest marrow fibrosis or tumor invasion. So abnormal platelets, it suggests either peripheral destruction or myelodysplastic syndrome. So if there are abnormal platelets, so this abnormal platelets, it will suggest either peripheral destruction or myelodysplastic syndrome. Bone marrow. The bone marrow is usually readily aspirated but dilute on smear. Bone marrow aspirated, it is dilute on smear. So bone marrow, so there will be a fatty biopsy specimen, so it may be grossly pale, and so there will be a fatty biopsy specimen will be there, and a dry tap, it suggests fibrosis or myelophthisis. So if there is a dry tap, it suggests fibrosis or myelophthisis. In severe aplasia, the smear of the aspirated specimen show only red cells, residual lymphocytes, and stromal cells. So what happens in severe aplasia? If the specimen is aspirated, it shows only red cells, residual lymphocytes, and stromal cells. So the biopsy, which should be greater than 1 centimeter in length, it is superior for determination of cellularity and shows mainly fat under the microscope. So if the bone marrow biopsy, if it is done in aplastic anemia, it will show fat under the microscope. So the biopsy should be greater than 1 centimeter in length. So this is superior for determination of cellularity and shows mainly fat under the microscope. Because it is mainly fat, what happens to the hematopoietic cells? So they will occupy less than 25% of the marrow space, And sometimes the biopsy is virtually all fat. Sometimes what happens, no, when biopsy is done, it will be completely fat, but in sometimes, no, the hematopoietic cells will occupy less than 25% of the marrow space. So here MCV is commonly increased if there is marrow fibrosis or a tumor invasion. So if there are nucleated red blood cells, it will suggest, if red blood cells are nucleated, it suggests marrow fibrosis or tumor invasion. Abnormal platelets, no, it suggests either peripheral destruction or myelodysplastic syndrome. Here only there will be a paucity of platelets and granulocytes. If platelets are abnormal, it suggests either peripheral destruction or myelodysplastic syndrome. Reticulocytes are also absent or few. So dry tap, if bone marrow aspiration, if it is a dry tap, it suggests fibrosis or myelophthisis. In aplastic anemia, we get a fatty biopsy specimen. So this will be pale on withdrawal. It is readily aspirated, but it is dilute on smear. Dry tap, if it is a dry tap, fibrosis or myelophthisis. The correlation between marrow cellularity and disease severity is imperfect. Patients with moderate disease by blood counts can have empty iliac crest biopsies. See, the correlation between marrow cellularity and disease severity is imperfect. See, if marrow is severely hypocellular, and the disease should be severe. So this correlation, no, so this is imperfect because patients with moderate disease by blood counts can have empty iliac crest biopsies. So blood counts can be moderate, but they can have this empty iliac crest biopsies. Hotspots of hematopoiesis may be seen in cases will be severe, but still you can find the hotspots of hematopoiesis. So residual hematopoietic cells should have normal morphology. Here the residual hematopoietic cells, they should have a normal morphology except for this megaloblastic erythropoiesis. Morphology will be normal here in aplastic anemia except for megaloblastic erythropoiesis. Megakaryocytes are greatly reduced, but morphology will be normal. And if there are granulomas, it may indicate an infectious etiology of the marrow failure. So granulomas, it indicates an infectious etiology of the marrow failure. Ancillary studies, so chromosome breakage studies of peripheral blood, okay, peripheral blood chromosome breakage studies. So this is done using diepoxybutane or mitomycin C, should be performed on children and younger adults to exclude Fanconi's anemia. So the chromosome breakage studies of peripheral blood. So this is done using diepoxybutane or mitomycin C. So this should be performed on children and young adults to exclude the Fanconi's anemia. Very short telomere length, it strongly suggests the presence of telomerase or shelterin mutation, which can be pursued by family studies and nucleotide sequencing. So if the telomere length is very short, it suggests the presence of a telomerase or a shelterin mutation. So this can be studied by pursued by family studies and by nucleotide sequencing for short telomere length. Chromosome studies of bone marrow cells are often revealing in MDS. In MDS, we see different chromosomal abnormalities, but this should be negative in typical aplastic anemia. If aplastic anemia is typical, so the chromosome studies should be negative. Flow cytometry, see, aplastic anemia is associated with PNH. So flow cytometry, it offers a sensitive diagnostic test for PNH. What is a sensitive diagnostic test for PNH? It is flow cytometry. Serological studies may show evidence of recent viral infection such as Epstein-Barr virus and HIV. So even infections, Epstein-Barr virus and HIV. So serological studies may show the evidence of recent viral infections. Post hepatitis aplastic, that is patient would have hepatitis, and post hepatitis patient can have aplastic anemia. So post hepatitis aplastic anemia, so this is seronegative. Genomics, next generation sequencing, so this allows for large number of genes to be tested for the presence of pathogenic mutations. Genomics means next generation sequencing, so this will allow for large number of genes can be tested for the presence of mutations. So what is this next generation sequencing? So this next generation sequencing, so this will allow for large number of genes to be tested for presence of pathogenic mutations. So panels are available commercially and in certified academic laboratories. Though they are expensive, they are very useful and sometimes critical in establishing the correct diagnosis. So this germline gene panel, so this examines 50 or more genes which are etiological in constitutional bone marrow failure, including many for which functional assays are not available. So if we take this germline gene panel, so this germline gene panel, it will examine 50 or more genes, so which are etiological in constitutional bone marrow failure. A germline panel should be considered for all children and those adults with suggestive clinical features or family histories. So a germline panel, no? So this should be considered for whom? This should be considered for all children and those adults, so with suggestive clinical features or family history. So somatic mutations are sought when MDS is suspected. So when MDS is suspected, somatic mutations are sought. For MDS, somatic mutations. Myeloid neoplasm gene panels. MDS, somatic mutations. Myeloid neoplasm gene panels can carry about 100 genes. So these are recurrently mutated in MDS and acute myeloid leukemia. So few genes, no, which are recurrently mutated in AML and MDS. So we have this myeloid neoplasm gene panels. Pathogenic mutations in spliceosome genes and genes in the cohesion family are frequent in MDS and unexpected in aplastic anemia. So if we take MDS, no, pathogenic mutations in the spliceosome genes and genes in the cohesion family, mutations in the spliceosome genes and genes in the cohesion family are frequent in MDS and these are unexpected in aplastic anemia. The diagnosis of aplastic anemia, it is usually straightforward based on the diagnosis is straightforward. There should be a pancytopenia and the bone marrow, it is a fatty bone marrow. It's based on the combination of pancytopenia with a fatty bone marrow. Aplastic anemia, it is a disease of the young and should be a leading diagnosis in the pancytopenic adolescent or young adult. So aplastic anemia, so this is a disease of the young and should be a leading diagnosis in pancytopenic adolescent or young adult. So when pancytopenia is secondary, the primary diagnosis is usually obvious. So secondary pancytopenia, so it could be due to massive spleen of alcoholic cirrhosis, or it could be due to history of metastatic cancer or SLE or miliary tuberculosis on chest radiograph. So if we take the causes of pancytopenia, so this pancytopenia, it could be due to secondary to systemic disorders like SLE, hypersplenism, B12 or folate deficiency, copper deficiency, alcohol, HIV infection, brucellosis, sarcoidosis, tuberculosis, leishmaniasis and sepsis. So here it will be, so this will be the differential diagnosis, but here the marrow is cellular bone marrow, but in aplastic anemia it is a hypocellular bone marrow. So it is acquired aplastic anemia and here a constitutional aplastic anemia. So this constitutional aplastic anemia, it occurs due to Fanconi's anemia, dyskeratosis congenita and others. And copper deficiency can also cause this hypocellular bone marrow. So this all this comes under the differential diagnosis of pancytopenia. But in aplastic anemia, so there will be a pancytopenia and it will be a fatty bone marrow. Then so when pancytopenia is secondary, the diagnosis is obvious from the history, like alcoholic cirrhosis or metastatic cancer or SLE. So diagnostic problems, no, it will occur with atypical presentations and related hematological diseases. Patients with bone marrow hypocellularity may have depression of only 1 or 2 of 3 bloodlines with later progression to pancytopenia. So initially it could be a 1-line depression and later there will be a 3-line depression with later progression to pancytopenia. The most important differential diagnoses are between acquired and constitutional aplastic anemia and between aplastic anemia and MDS. So what should be differentiated? Whether it is acquired and constitutional aplastic anemia and between aplastic anemia and MDS, because MDS is hypercellular, but in 20% of the cases it could be hypocellular. The bone marrow in constitutional aplastic anemia, it is, see, if you take constitutional aplastic anemia and if you take this acquired aplastic anemia, so the bone marrow, it is morphologically indistinguishable from the aspirate in the acquired disease, but exception is GATA2 deficiency. So in GATA2 deficiency, so there will be a megakaryocyte atypia. So GATA2 deficiency, it's a constitutional aplastic anemia. So here you can see the megakaryocyte atypia. So the diagnosis is suggested by family history, abnormal blood counts since childhood. Patient could have this family history, abnormal blood counts since childhood, or the presence of associated, sometimes subtle physical anomalies. So if you take this constitutional aplastic anemia, there can be family history, there can be abnormal blood counts since childhood, or there could be presence of associated, sometimes subtle physical anomalies. So genomic testing for pathogenic mutations in genetic etiological in constitutional marrow failure syndromes can discriminate acquired from inherited aplastic anemia. But results may not return for several weeks, a problem in the severely pancytopenic patient. So genomic testing can be done for pathogenic mutations in constitutional marrow failure syndromes like GATA2. So they can discriminate whether it is acquired or whether it is inherited aplastic anemia. This results, it may not return for several weeks. So a problem in the severely pancytopenic patient. AML and MDS in a pedigree should prompt screening for an inherited predisposition syndrome such as RUNX1 mutation. So if in a pedigree, if there is AML and MDS, so this should prompt screening for an inherited predisposition syndrome. So what is this inherited predisposition syndrome in a pedigree? So this is due to RUNX1 mutation. And aplastic anemia, it might be difficult to distinguish from hypocellular variety of MDS. So in MDS, it will be favored by morphological abnormalities, particularly of the megakaryocytes and myeloid precursor cells. So in MDS, what will be there? Morphological abnormalities will be there, particularly of the megakaryocytes and also the myeloid precursor cells, and cytogenetic abnormalities and even somatic mutations are seen in myelodysplastic syndrome. And there remains an unclear boundary. So there is an unclear boundary between immune aplastic anemia and low risk MDS. So unclear boundary between immune aplastic anemia and low risk MDS. So patients with deletion of 13q and 20q may respond well to immunosuppression. So patients with deletion of 13q and 20q, they respond well to immunosuppression, and mutations in genes such as DNMT3A and ASXL1 occur in both diseases. And mutations in genes. So what are the mutations in genes? DNM T3A and ASXL1. So they occur in both low risk MDS and immune aplastic anemia. So there remains an unclear boundary between immune aplastic anemia and low risk MDS. Patients with deletion of 13q and 20q may respond well to immunosuppression, and mutations in genes such as DNMT3 and ASXL1 occur in both diseases. So prognosis, the natural history of severe aplastic anemia, it is rapid deterioration and death. Natural history is patient will rapidly deteriorate and death can occur. So historically, provision first of RBCs, PRBCs have to be transfused, and later platelet transfusion and effective antibiotics were of some benefit, but few patients they show spontaneous recovery. So what is the natural history of severe aplastic anemia? So it is rapid deterioration and death. Historically, provision first of RBCs and later of platelet transfusions and effective antibiotics. So what is the major prognostic determinant? The major prognostic determinant is the blood count. The major prognostic determinant is blood count. So when do you say patient has got severe disease? So severe disease when means by presence of 2 of 3 parameters. Of 3 parameters, if there are 2 parameters, then we can say patient has got severe disease. That is, absolute neutrophil count will be less than 500 per microliter, platelet count less than 20,000 per microliter, and corrected reticulocyte count less than 1%, or absolute reticulocyte count less than 60,000 per microliter. So when can we say that patient has got severe disease? It is by presence of 2 of 3 parameters: neutrophil count less than 500 per microliter, platelet count less than 20,000 per microliter, and corrected reticulocyte count less than 1%, or absolute reticulocyte count less than 60,000 per microliter. So in the era of effective immunosuppressive therapies, absolute number of reticulocytes greater than 25,000 per microliter and lymphocytes greater than 1,000 per microliter may be better predictors of response to treatment and long-term outcome. So other prognostic factors. So what are the other one major prognostic determinant is blood count. So 2 of 3 severe disease. And what are the other prognostic factors? So the other prognostic factors include the presence of a PNH clone. Other prognostic factors are presence of a PNH clone, short telomeres on presentation, and somatically mutated white cells. So what are the other prognostic factors? Other prognostic factors include presence of a PNH clone, short telomeres on presentation, and somatically mutated white cells. So even small PNH clones, it may indicate an immune pathophysiology and responsiveness to immunosuppressive therapies. So if small PNH clones are there, so this indicates an immune pathophysiology and there will be a responsiveness to immunosuppressive therapies. Telomere shortening in most patients likely reflects stem cell reserve, regenerative stress, and susceptibility to chromosomal instability. So if there is a telomere shortening, so this most patients, so what does it tell? It tells that it reflects stem cell reserve, regenerative stress, and susceptibility to chromosomal instability. So collectively, the presence of mutations in the same myeloid neoplasia genes that are mutated in clonal hematopoiesis of indeterminate potential, ASXL1, DNMT3A, it is associated with worse prognosis and clonal evolution. So if these genes are present, ASXL1, DNMT3A, so the presence of mutations in the same myeloid neoplasia genes. So these that are mutated in this clonal hematopoiesis of indeterminate potential like ASXL1 and DNMT3A. So this is associated with worse prognosis and clonal evolution.